What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to the Rogue Painter YouTube channel. I am JD, aka the Rogue Painter, and today we're going to learn to paint a Blood Angel. So if you're looking at this video, then I'm assuming you know what the Blood Angels are, but just in case you don't, they are a chapter of Space Marines from the Warhammer 40,000 universe. And their armour is primarily a red, nice deep red armour. So what we're going to do today with this is we're going to learn to paint just the armour. When in regards to the eyes, the chest emblem, purity seals, the belt, the leather pouches and such, I have other videos on that. I'll post links to those in the description as soon as they are up and available. So as you can see, I've started off with a grey undercoat using a spray primer, and I've just gone ahead and painted in the black areas just under the helmet here, the belt buckle, which will be silver, so we undercoat that with black, in the under armour here, and the same with the back, some of the metal areas, the under armour, and including under here, all the under armour. So if you've undercoated and primed in anything other than black primer, I suggest you go ahead and paint in these bits now. If not, then you can jump ahead and catch up with the painting. So the first colour we're going to use is our base colour, and for that we're going to use Mephiston Red. Now the way that I'm going to paint this is a little bit more detailed than what you would use for regular tabletop wargaming. It's something you would probably save more for characters, unit leaders, things like that. You know, things to stand out a little bit more. This isn't display quality, definitely not competition quality. It's, like I say, somewhere between hero quality and battle ready, as the term is. So we've applied some of the Mephiston Red down on our palette here, just thinned it down slightly just to get it to flow a little bit easier. And all we're going to do is get some nice strokes, smooth finish over the model here. If you are using a black primer, then this may take you a few coats more than it will here. For me, this will probably take one, maybe two coats. So, like I say, all we're aiming for is a nice, smooth, deep red finish of that Mephiston Red. Keep your brush moving nice and quick. Get some nice smooth strokes on there. You don't want the paint clumping up or anything. Don't worry if you've got patches, as that will be eliminated with later layers. So while I get on with doing a couple of layers of this, I'll skip to where it's done, and then we can carry on. So if you guys want to pause the video here, get yours done if you're painting along, and then you can unpause and catch up with the next step. See you in a second, guys. Okay, so once you've got all your Mephiston Red on there, just try and get the camera to pick that up in a nice clean coat, we're now going to shade in all the details in the armour, sort of the cutout areas, the recesses, and some of the shading for the lower parts, so the under shading. And for that we're going to use a mix of Carroburg Crimson and a little bit of Nuln Oil, just to darken it up a little bit more, as it tends to be a little bit too toward the red and doesn't show up against this red too well. bit of this on the palette. That'll do for now. Go. Looking at about a 3:1 ratio for the crimson there. We don't want to change it too much. And then what we're going to do is thin this down a little bit more. Although these are shades, the technique that we're going to be using requires it to be just a touch thinner. We're going for more of a glaze. Excuse the grey nails here, but that's what we're aiming for. More of a glaze there. So what we're going to do now is take a small amount into the brush, just on the tip there, and we're going to run around all these under areas into this recess in the boot area, things like this, anywhere where the light from our light source can't quite reach, as well as all recesses, joins, things like that. So in this little area here, down here, under here, and we're looking to carefully place this rather than blob it in. If you were going for more of a tabletop quick paint, this is where I would suggest taking just the Carroburg Crimson and just giving a complete wash over the model, and then dry brush over the top of that. So we just want this to run into the recesses. And then what we're going to do now is work out where our light source will be coming from. Now, the best way to do models is to have a light source from the top. So with that, we want to shade the inner part of the thigh that is going to be covered by this, and then some of this center area here. This side will actually be lighter. So we'll go around this little bit of detail here. Now what we're going to do is from the center out, or roughly where our highlight would be, just going to gently backwards or forwards, up and down, take this Carroburg Crimson and just shade in our darker area. Now this will look brighter as it goes on, or darker I should say, but that will lighten up a little bit when it dries. So just around here, under the kneecap. We do want to make sure that each layer of this dries before going back over it. So around and under this, run it into this channel here, and down along here. This will be in shadow as it's a step under the upper armour there. Now with the lighting, because the leg is slightly bent backwards, we're going to have a light area that will come down come down here. So this will be lighter, and then we will get darker as we come under here. And what we do is rinse the brush and gently tease some of that just into our mid-tone there, which is the Mephiston red that we laid down, and just soften that edge up. And the same on this side, we'll run it down underneath. Just the top of here, as it is far out enough that we will catch some light along the bottom there. This area will be dark. Get some down into here to darken that panel up, and then again follow this shape. Shade down. Now this side will catch the light more, so we don't need as much along here, but we will put a little bit just along the edge there. And then what we'll do is come back from where our highlight would be, back into the shadow area here. Right, now the entire underside of this leg will be in shadow. So again, what we'll do is start here and up and down, working our way, not all the way, as the back area will catch some light, and then under this kneecap and under that plate that sticks out there. You can see on there, you just get this subtle undertone, this shadowy area just underneath where we want it. And then in the dry areas we can go back in with that crimson mix, and this time not coming quite as far out into our lighter area, just to again darken that up. Basically what we're doing is layering glazes to get the shades darker and darker as they come into shadowed and recessed areas. So with each successive layer, leave a small gap of the previous layer and that will give you a smoother blend and transition between your lights and darks. Right, under this panel here we will have shadow. And also just on the edges, or just in from the edges, coming down either side, as it is slightly, this plate is slightly curved. And also with the crotch area, you can do the whole thing, but it will be darker underneath. The same with this plate. Now this plate here in the centre we'll have along the top, and then just a little bit down on the edges. And the same here, just underneath the plate there, down the side. And I have just noticed that I've missed this area with Mephiston red, and that's not a problem. I'll go back in and touch that in just a bit. So under what would be the arm area here, and the undercurve of the chest armour, this will all be in shadow. And you don't need to worry too much about it, as the guns will cover the majority of it. And then just go lighter as we get to the top. Right, so again, coming back. Now this plate here will actually be the opposite, as it's going to be in shadow from what is above. So it will be lighter down towards the bottom. The same with anything on the thigh here. All of this will be in shadow. Along with the back of the thigh here. And again, this will be a lighter area, so we'll just have a bit of shading just around the plate there. Right, now with the armour, we're going to be light up here. We've got this curve. If you imagine this almost a box, there'll be a line here. So just under here is where it will start getting darker. And we don't need to worry too much about the back area, because the backpack is going to cover it. So same on both sides. And then just coming up from the bottom of the helmet, get around some of these trims. You don't want to cover this too much. Around the back here, get it in there, and then the same thing, start from about here, and then we're coming down with shadow. Now if you find your mix is thickening up slightly, which it will do as it dries out, just thin it down again with some water and check that consistency on there. So again, with the front plate here, we're going to be dark underneath it as the light is coming down, but it will be lighter towards the outside edges. So we want to come from the outside edge to the center. Catch up under the eye there, just under the area there. Now we're going to go just around the earpiece there, and along the brow, and then just shy of the peak of the helmet there, the mouthpiece, sorry. And let that shading fall into that mouthpiece area. Alright, now I'm just going to take some of the Carrabao Crimson here. And a small amount of that Mephiston Red that we used for the base. Thin it down a little bit more. Now we're just going to blend over the edges slightly and come into that shading and smooth it out. So anywhere you've got harsh lines, you just go back over it. Okay, so there we go. It does tend to look a little bit more muddy on the camera than it actually is. I will try and get a photo up at the end to show you how it looks, and I will try and save up for a better quality camera for future videos. Right, so once that is done, it's on to the next stage. So for this, we're going to use some Evil Sunz Scarlet. And again, thin it down to almost a glaze consistency. Alright, now what we're trying to do with this is just take up all the highlight areas, or the areas where the light would hit. Probably a bit too thin, that. Thicken it up slightly. So just the edges of the armour where the light would hit. You don't need too much paint on your brush, just a small amount in the tip there. So we'll get a highlight that will come down the centre of here. And just along the edge here. Along the top of the neck guard thing here. Now the top of the helmet is going to be almost all the way back. So start in the shadow area and pull to the front. Top of the earpiece here, and the same here. And come just off the back here and over the shoulder. And the same with the front. Start just in the shaded area and pull back. And then here we want to start just in the highlight and then come back towards our mid area. Top of the kneecap, same thing, start where our highlight would be, or our shadow rather, and make sure you finish in the highlight area. Do leave some of that shadow along the top there. We can go back over areas that have started to dry, like the foot for example. Now because this paint is thinned with water, it does tend to dry quite quick. Alright, so now we're coming down along where the light would hit, Remember, it will catch the bottom a little bit more than it would the top. The top is nearer the body area, and so it's under shadow from that. So the same on the back of the leg, you will get a shine down the middle. Now this isn't metallic armour, but it will still get a bit of a shade, and then we'll start in the shaded area and work our way back towards the highlight, moving up and down continuously. And if you start in the highlight area, just make sure that that's where you end up. Right, top of the foot here, but just on the outside edge, and then finishing on the top. The same with here, and then just a little down the side of the leg here. So in that same up-down motion, finish with the highlight on the outer edge. This armour, you're going to get a bit of a highlight on the outside edges, and then toward the centre and at the top. Same with the knee pad here, more towards the outside edge than the inside, and this one more on the top than the sides. As you layer this up more and more, it will brighten up until the brightest it can go, which will be the original colour as it is on the palette there. Obviously at the moment, because the paint is so thin, you're actually seeing the underlayer, or the underpaint, the undertone, and so it's changing the tone of the paint of the layer that we're putting on. But eventually that gets taken out as more and more paint is applied over the top. Right, now what we're going to do is take a slightly thicker section of that, or a thicker area of that paint there that we hadn't mixed up. If you had mixed it all, then get yourself some fresh and thin it down slightly. And all we're going to do is almost edge highlighting, but this isn't the final highlight we will do. And this is just to put a little bit more emphasis on the highlight area, but we will also use it for some actual edge highlighting in the darker areas. as even dark areas that have edges will still have edge highlights. Okay, so I'm now going to switch over to a detailed brush, just so I can get this paint on a smaller area. And what we're going to do is just run around the bottom of all these recess areas, and we're just going to apply the highlight along the edges there. And the reason we do this on the bottom and not the top is the light can't actually hit the edge on the top, it only picks up on the bottom. So you can come down here and along this, and come along here and edge highlight a little bit, run along the bottom of this line here, and although I intended this to be a 20-30 minute video, I have a feeling this is going to be a lot longer. So apologies for that, but at the same time I do thank you sincerely if you are sticking with me. I'm just going to quickly paint in this armor plate here. Also, don't forget to catch the area just under the eye here, and the same on the other side, as that will catch light up there. And if you do happen to get a bit of the highlight into the darker areas, it's easy enough to fix. Just take a small amount of the shade colour and with a fine brush, a detail brush, just drop that back in there. That's not a problem. So just drop that in there like so. Right, so now that we have our highlight colours, we're going to go ahead and take some Wild Rider Red. This does err on the pinkish side, this. So what we're going to do is just take some of that Evil Sun's and just redden it up slightly, pull it away from the pinkish, thin it down there, and then again with a fine brush just pull some paint onto it, and all we're going to do is just pick off some areas where the light would hit most, as well as some extreme edge highlighting. On rounded surfaces you tend to get sort of a ball sphere type shape, so go ahead and put that on there. Now this highlight, we don't want it going into the dark areas, it is just to highlight the edges of the brightest area. So just go around all the edges, pick out what you can. It is always better to work with a slightly over thinned paint than a thicker one, as if it doesn't show because it's too thin, you can go back over a number of times until it does. This was going to be a highly reflective surface, and those lighter areas on the roundish would have a lighter area coming onto them, sort of a very, very sharp, crisp white highlight. But because this armour, I believe, is painted and is not a metallic, then we don't want that metallic look to it, which is what the white will do. Just give the back a bit of attention here. Top edge of the helmet, the mohawk bit, down the sides, top of the ear. Not quite sure what that's called. That's something to do with the Vox communicator. I just call it the earpiece. Small area on the helmet there. Right, and we can go ahead and call that done. So as you can see, you've got some of the highlight along this edge here, and down at the bottom there, and then as we turn the model, it gets darker under the leg. Just get some light on that. So you've got a nice gradient from the light to the dark, and the same on the outside edge here, from the light to the dark. And then there's the helmet and the back. Obviously we've got this area coming from light to dark, and then the same going the other way. So there you go, that's all the red parts of the Blood Angels done. So thanks a lot for joining me, guys. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more videos. I'm planning on doing a few of the other chapters, so there'll be videos on those, and we will also have a look at how to do brown leather, including sort of weathered leather. We will do battle damage, we will do some purity seals, the eyes will have a sort of an OSL effect, so sort of a greenish glow around them, and yeah. So also I do have Twitch that I stream on regularly, as well as Instagram, Twitter. If you can check those out in the description below, go and follow those. If you'd like to support me further, I do have a Patreon. You can check that out. Just a cheap tier on there at the moment, just £2 a month, just to help the channel. You know, help me save up towards some more miniatures, some models, to do some more painting tutorials. Any funds raised, any donations, anything like that is always put back into the channel. So I thank you all again, and I shall catch you next time.